Do you really believe that all cultures are equal? Like how would you assess a culture? Like in my opinion, I think you would assess a culture based on the outcomes that you see playing out in the society where that culture rules. So if in one culture, let's say, for whatever reason, they have not been able to mend their differences, and then there is a perpetual war, generation after generation after generation, and this place is producing refugees who are pouring out in those places where, okay, there is culture, there is a different culture there, but there is peace, there is maybe respect for some values, human rights, and I mean, of course, there are always issues, but the person that you are running to would say, look, in our culture, we are not doing those things that you're doing over there. So because we have peace, we have, let's say, respect for human rights, respect for time, we honor our contracts, so many things that they can say, they can push back and say, look, thank you, we appreciate our culture, but you came here, our culture is superior.
I would say that there are things. So I would say that cultures, when I look at culture, I'm not looking at necessarily what political leaders are doing, because I do feel like there are many Americans who may love their country, but not their government, and maybe embarrassed, in fact, by some of the things that their government does. Things may look nice because things are very shiny here. You've got, infrastructure is great. Internet is high speed, cable, all of these great, wonderful things. But I do think that there are, a lot of other issues regarding human rights.
Coming to this question though, so do you think all cultures are equally valid?
Yes.
How about, let's say, the culture of, let's say, female genital mutilation, which is practiced, I think, in some part. So that's part of the culture, right? I don't think
it's a cultural practice. So I think not all cultural practices are valid, but the people who practice them. So, like I know FGM is practiced a lot in Somalia. And it has a really high rate of practice in Somalia. But the Somali people, their culture, their music, their beliefs, their history is just as valid as anyone else's. So the fact that they practice FGM is not a good cultural practice. And those are cultural practices that honestly, within the culture, those are things that people are battling. I think you have to constantly assess your practices within your own culture. Sexism exists everywhere.
Right.
America is no exception to that. It's not necessarily something that is part of the culture that has to stay. These are practices that happen that have to be addressed. Okay, so there are cultural practices that should be addressed, but the people themselves.
So there are distinctions between the culture itself and the cultural practices that are embedded into that culture. So the cultural practices may be bad, they need to be removed, but the culture itself as a way of life, as a history, as the way people have evolved into whatever community, it's something to actually to honor as a part of honoring those people.